Yes, I can see.
All right, and do you hear us?
Click into it. Yes, I can see. Okay.
All right, and do you
7.
It's fun having a delay and then having to hear you ask me that again. Yep.
I think so. Making sure I actually hear some stuff on the video.
Hello, internets, and welcome to PolyCast episode 447. I am one of your regular co-hosts, Mega Bears fan, joined as always by Makalua.
Where'd my coffee pot go? I lost it.
Oh no, not the coffee! Save the coffee! And the Mian team.
Always changing, always evolving.
Always patching?
Yes, many patches. Many patches, many
patches.
evolutions, like a Pokemon.
Much wow.
Well, speaking of, we do have patch 1.2.2, which came out on June 23rd. Which came with the usual warnings of, hey, things may not show up until you start a new game, and we're trying to preserve your, make sure the saves don't become incompatible, but sometimes things break. But anyway.
Did it break save games?
Well, they say we can't, they're trying to do it as much as possible, but they can't guarantee, It'll work for 95% and then somebody will get broken, that kind of thing.
I feel like the better way to handle these kinds of things is to not default people into auto updates. Let them finish their saves and then hit the button to update when they're ready, rather than trying to preserve compatibility between every patch. Now, if it's like a minor thing, then sure, but
yeah, because eventually you're going to have
features or changing how the balance of features works. Like if you're changing mechanically things in the game, it makes more sense to me to just not have people update until they're ready to start a new game.
Yeah, because eventually you have something that changes a big fundamental piece, and then everything's broken. So
that's one of my big hangups with a lot of Paradox games. Stellaris in particular. That was the reason that I fell off of Stellaris, was because it's a big, huge game that takes weeks or months to play through a campaign, but they would release patches every couple of months where your old saves wouldn't be compatible anymore. And I couldn't keep playing the games, and I just got sick of restarting new games over and over again every time they patched it.
Did they not have the option to stay on a particular patch in Steam?
So, I don't know if that's come back, but I remember there was a point where Steam removed that because of some law in the some digital copyright law in the EU, where you couldn't just change the version of the game back to an older version. I think they may have since brought that back, but I don't know for sure. I haven't tried it since.
Because that's, at least for most of the time I've played Paradox games, that's been an option.
Yeah, and I was using that for a while, but then it went away and I couldn't use it, so,
Yeah. Yeah, now I'm curious if we can do that now.
Well, what the Civ players have in the meantime is finally large and huge maps, which people wanted from the get-go, but hey, now you got it. They said they wanted to take time to get it right, and they're now happy to add it. The multiplayer, both map sizes default to 10, but multiplayer campaigns are still going to max out at 8 total players, including the AI in the humans. They'd like to get it to 12. Part of the reason is they're making sure it's not going to mess up stability or performance, which even in Civ 6, when you try to push it beyond the supported limits, you can get errors. So yeah, I see where they're coming from with that one. It's not fun to watch your game break when you're 100 turns in a multiplayer.
Yeah, I think they said they want to go up to having larger maps, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. 12 players is their goal for the huge maps, but they're going to add that cap or increase that cap later. They want the players to run through this on some games on large and huge maps to make sure that this performance doesn't just absolutely tank, because that is a lot of AI calculations.
Right. Although, I mean, it worked fine in Civ 5 and Civ 6, so, I kind of wonder on a technical level, what is so different that it doesn't work in this one.
As do I. We've had more AI opponents in games, 15, 20 years ago even.
I mean, gosh, didn't Civ 5 and Civ 6 go like up to like 14 or like 18 or something like that players?
Yeah, but and I know in 6, once you go past the default limits, it tells you it's unsupported, which is like, we'll let you do it, but we can't guarantee this isn't going to crash horribly at some point.
Oh yeah, and I
Or
mean
just bog down.
and it will be slow. You're talking about
18 Civ was a map in Civ 4, so yeah, you could. You're definitely fewer now than you used to, so they must be doing something differently with how they're
Yeah, and
handling
there's
the AI
also the note
players.
that there are bigger system demands and things, especially because it's across so many platforms. When you got Xbox and the Switch and 2 and stuff in there, that they're not going to have as much overhead as a PC for running this. So it'll run, but they can't. But they know they're trying to get ahead of people complaining about slowdowns and everything else, basically.
Now, what I hope that doesn't result in is the lowest common denominator, where the game is just slow no matter where
Yeah.
you play it.
Or inversely, it means that because the game is scaled back for consoles, it means that on PCs it'll play super awesome and perfect and
That'd
fast.
be nice, yes. That'd be amazing. Believe it when I say it.
It won't be as big
be
as
amazing.
past games, but it'll work really well. Unless you're on a Mac, probably, because the Macs always have problems.
That Macs have long been a dubious choice for gaming.
Yep.
Well, and I would argue generally as well, but certainly for gaming.
But yeah, this patch also has a lot of other updates that are done specifically to address some of the player complaints. So, Mackie, you want to talk about the next big updates?
Yeah, new advanced game options. Because I know we have another topic on this about the legacy pass things later, but they have set it up so now players can enable or disable specific legacy paths per age or turn them off entirely. Disable score victory, which means you have unlimited turns in that final age. Enable or disable specific crises. Custom AI difficulty options, and there's some screenshot here showing all the different things you can on your difficulty settings. Because there's things like you can change how tough like an AI governor is, their XP, unit production things. There's just a whole list of little things you could tweak to, very get in there and customize it how you want to.
And this stuff is like, I'm not gonna like underplay this. This stuff is awesome. Like, I have been asking for difficulty adjustments like this for as long as I have been on this show, at least since years and years and years ago when Dan first asked me to be a guest. Like, this was one of my soapboxes, is instead of having these discrete difficulty settings that change a bunch of stuff altogether, I would like to be able to go in and change specific difficulty modifiers and handicaps. So, for example, if I'm really good at like economic play, but not so good at military play, and I want the AIs to have all of their like science and production and economic benefits, but not necessarily have their free combat modifiers on the higher difficulty levels. Beforehand you couldn't do that, right? You go up to like Emperor or whatever, and they get all their free settlers at the start of the game. They get all their production bonuses. They get free, military combat strength bonuses. But now you can go in and you can specifically customize like all of those different things to custom tailor the difficulty to what you are good at or where you want the game to be challenging, which is friggin' awesome.
Yeah, because there's things in there like
it's been this granular, I believe.
Yeah, because this is the kind of stuff you used to have mods to adjust. Because there's things like adjusting like the cost of text, or how hard the AI goes on their unit production. It's lengths of ages. I mean, length and starts were some of that stuff that was in there. But
I mean, even like the aggressiveness of like independent powers and city states is in here. I think there's even a modifier for how much damage trying to move ships into the ocean does before you've unlocked the technology that lets ships enter oceans without penalty. Like, that's how granular this is. If you want your ships to sink slower or faster in deep ocean before you're supposed to go into deep ocean, you can set that now.
And it looked like individually in ages, like it was showing where you could how hard the crises are. You know, not just on or off, but also how hard they are. And also, I think another one is bypassing. Another one of the things is the bypass the Civ unlocks, so you can just play any Civ you want to. You don't have to worry about getting it unlocked every time.
Although, unfortunately, you still can't choose to play the same civilization throughout the entire game, which I know is something that a lot of people really, really, really want. That's something that Humankind does do, right? Because Humankind is the other big game that has the culture or Civ switching mechanic, and that game does let you keep the same Civ from the previous era, and like I mean, you don't get to use a lot of their uniques anymore because a lot of the uniques are era specific. But like you get some other bonus. I forget what they call it. It might have been a legacy bonus. I forget exactly what they call it. But some small buff to kind of make up for the fact that your uniques aren't going to be as good anymore outside of the age in which they're intended to be used. So Civ 7 could do something like that, but they haven't yet, unfortunately.
Well, to go along with new maps, new bonuses for religion, for city states, and for towns. Because we had a topic we didn't get to that's going to be about the cities and towns, but I'm going to guess may have changed the cities and towns gameplay all over again.
Yeah, that it's going to be a little bit obsolete, but I think that the gist of everything will be still, applicable.
Yeah, no, there's still going to be general trade-offs between the two that you're making.
Yeah, it was two new.
And the other big thing too is Steam Workshop support.
Yes, a lot of, and then there's also an initial verting of a modding SDK as well. So that gives, not that there already has been a lot of mods even without all these tools, but now the tools are out there, the workshop support is out there. So this is going to be a lot easier for modders to go at it and for more people to come into modding and to get it distributed. And the usual reminders of don't use other people's IP, please keep it safe and respectful. I'm sure no one will do it. And no malicious code. Please don't hack everybody.
So they're saying no. They're saying no more Game of Thrones total overhauls.
Sector, I can say that the no malicious code, unfortunately, probably needs to be there. As some of the people running Star Sector mods actually did implement malicious code into one of the mods that would brick the save if you had other mods installed because they didn't agree with the content of the other mods.
Oh, that's just
wow. I think I remember there being a big issue with City Skylines a few years ago with some mod that had malicious code that like gave hackers access to like the underlying OS or kernel or something like that.
Oh, that's even worse. That's much worse. I mean, bricking a save is already illegal, straight up. Like that's already not okay from even a legal perspective, to let alone a moral. But yeah, root access to a machine is way more dangerous than that.
Yeah, that was bad. I don't remember exactly what the issue was, but I'm pretty sure it was resolved fairly promptly. But yeah. Talk about making your system unstable.
Why we can't have nice things, I swear.
Yeah, I know. It's the world we live in, unfortunately. If only we could live in a world where we don't actually need passwords for anything. Then I wouldn't have to worry about not remembering them.
Yes, especially with the forced updates all the time, which creates security not only against people who would hack me, but also against my own memory.
Oh, you mean like where they make you change your password like every few months?
Yeah.
There's actually research that says that is bad security practice, because what it does is it encourages people to use like simpler passwords that are easier to remember and to have like easy systems so that they can remember what password they're on, where you just change like one character or something like that. Like your password just becomes like password 1, password 2, password 3, etc. every time you have to
Yeah,
change it.
or the month and date you changed it in, and all sorts of silly things. Or you do
Right.
the worst thing and you write it down where anyone can read it.
Yeah, put on a yellow sticky note on the computer
Uh
monitor,
huh.
like so many puzzles and so many adventure style video games where the solution is just on a post-it on the wall somewhere. Like whatever happened to the good old days where like you'd get to like a computer and you have to hack the password and you're expected to like look around the room and see like there's a photograph of their anniversary or wedding or something like that, and you're supposed to read the date on the back and combine that with like the age of their kids and stuff like. Now it's just written on a board somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah,
Erase
that's
one.
rough. Although it would be harder for a hacker to access like a sticky note password. But anyone who's physically there, you're screwed.
Well, if you want nice things, you have a better loading screen, or a new loading screen at
Well,
least that has some more voiceovers and things.
yeah, better is subjective. It'd be nice to not have like all the scroll bars all over the place on all these different tabs. I like the idea. I like the idea a lot. But like having to scroll up and down to like read stuff on the loading screen is a little bit weird.
I like the expression of the guy they have on the site. He looks about like how you'd look waiting on a loading screen.
Oh, Tecumseh?
Yeah.
He just kind of has this look of like, yeah, this
Oh,
is my life.
they need
He
the
looks
old
like he doesn't want to be there right now.
yeah. It could be worse though. It could be the old Sonic the Hedgehog gimmick where you let your controller idle for like 30 seconds or whatever, and he starts tapping his foot and checking his watch. They could have a little animation of the characters doing that to remind you of just how long it's taking.
Yeah, in one of the games, if you idle long enough, you just straight up like jump off the screen and you get a game over.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, remember that one. I know he would sometimes even lay down and like take a nap or something like that. I didn't remember that he would actually like self-terminate because he
You
snored.
you only got the game over like that on Sonic CD, but he did do it. It was
Okay.
funny. Screw you for not pausing, I guess.
I know, right?
Whoops! I accidentally double tapped the pause button when I got up. My bad. One thing that I see below with all the more detailed bits on gameplay, I do see we have land-based treasure convoys, which is I know something people have been saying, but why can't I just haul it home like that? Well, now you can.
Every other unit can embark. It made no sense that this one couldn't. The other neat thing is that you can attack and capture them now, which means they've now added an element of piracy to the game. Although we still don't have like genuine, as far as I know, genuine privateer units that every civ can build. So it's not like real piracy. There is a militaristic city state. If you become the suzerain of a militaristic city state in the exploration age, one of the bonuses that you can choose is to unlock the ability to train a is it called a privateer? Or did they call it something else? I think it might be called a privateer. But you can build privateers in Civ 7, but it requires a city state, and only one Civ in the game can do it, which kind of defeats the purpose of having like a hidden nationality or piracy. Because if everyone knows, yeah, if everyone knows who is the one Civ that has the pirate ships, then they all know who's the one. I don't even think it has hidden nationality anyway. I think it's more like how Civ 6 and Civ 5 worked, where you have a chance of capturing the enemy ship when you sink it, which is
letters that mark.
Yeah, which is lame. I've loved Civ 4 and the Civ 4 colonization thing where like the pirate ships were actually, the privateers showed up as barbarian units to every other player. So you didn't know exactly who was attacking you. And it led to some really fun multiplayer games where we were all attacking each other with privateers and not really being very forthcoming about who was attacking who, and everyone pretending it was actual because they also have, in colonization anyway, they actually had barbarian units as well, which would have privateers. Yeah. So there would be the players privateers with hidden nationality, and that would look like barbarians, and there would be actual barbarian privateers. So you could always like totally just lie and be like, oh, I don't know whose privateers those are, it must be the barbarians.
With one caveat in Civ 4 is that depending on what you were attacking with your privateer, it could generate a great person as a consequence of doing that. And that would look pretty sus mid-turn.
Oh yeah, you have unlocked the great Admiral Barbarossa, or
Basically, yeah,
not
like someone
Barbarossa,
that's getting their
Blackbeard.
ships attacked, and then you unlock a great person like the same second. It's like,
Yeah,
I
well,
wonder, how this person got this great person.
I've just been attacked by a privateer ship, and someone just popped a great admiral.
well, and
Yeah,
Civ
yeah.
and Civ 6
Okay.
in particular, like having hidden nationality for privateers would have worked really well with the grievances system, because they could have had a system where destroying the privateer has the potential to reveal its nationality, and then that could be a potential grievance and a reason to denounce the other player. But like they didn't do that, and I was like, oh, you missed a golden opportunity.
We're a step away from false flags.
Yeah, boo hoo.
I did notice under the when you take out the legacy pass, they have now added the fission tech to the modern age, so you don't have to go down the military legacy path if you just want to go throw some nukes.
Right. Yeah. In fact, that used to be like basically the win condition for the military
Yeah,
victory was like you'd build the nukes and then the game would just be over.
but now you can pursue other legacies, but turn off military legacy and still throw nukes to stop people,
Right.
which traditional Civ gameplay.
I feel like games are taking away our nukes. It feels bad. What they did to Hearts of Iron was with nukes is terrible. Just terrible. We can no longer carpet nuke entire front lines in a World War II game. History be damned. That was fun.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go into details about all the specifics, but like a few other notable updates is there are now pantheon beliefs that every civilization or that multiple civilizations can choose as their pantheon. So you could have multiple civilizations that have the same pantheon. It's not all of them. It's just like there's like one or two of them that can be chosen by multiple civs. And I think this is intended to make it so that they can support maps with more civilizations without having to add new pantheon beliefs, so that there's unique pantheons for every civilization. So if you have a mod, or the game eventually gets patched to allow more civilizations, you don't end up in a situation where you unlock a pantheon and there's literally nothing left for you to choose. And then they did the same thing now with city-state suzerain bonuses. Is there is like one or two bonuses that multiple civilizations can take if they become suzerains of the same type of city-state, because the bonuses aren't unique to the specific city-state anymore. It's each type of city-state has a list of bonuses that you can choose from.
Yeah, you wouldn't want a soft block or literally nothing. That's fair.
Yeah, because
Right.
they had noticed there had been player complaints about what was the point of me doing a religion? I never get to spread it, or I'm always too late, and what is even the point of me having the religion? So they're trying to add more things to make it more attractive for the player to push their own.
Right. So yeah, all good stuff. I think also like you can you did they add the ability to like pick which independent powers or city states? I guess that is kind of pointless since they don't have any unique stuff. There would be no reason to pick which specific ones are in the game. You can choose whether they all start hostile or friendly, though.
Yeah, and I don't know, that might affect the pool of city states it picks from.
Yeah, I don't know if they have like biases. I kind of wish that there were a couple more in between settings. Like maybe a mostly friendly and a mostly hot or a mostly hostile instead of like an all or nothing. Because I like the variability of having hostile city states. What I don't like is those games where you load into a map and like on turn one you're just surrounded by like three of them.
Yeah, the dev note was we know sometimes you just want to have some space to build your capital. Peace and quiet.
Right. But
There's so many other little changes.
we'd be here all day if we read it all.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there any other big changes anyone noticed you wanted to point out?
No, I think the biggest one is the legacy paths, and that's what we're going to be talking about next.
Oh, and Isabella's ability, because I know a lot of people were using Isabella there for a while, but they what was it?
Oh yeah, there were some Civ and leader buffs and nerfs. Isabella was the biggest one. I think initially she got like a large bonus like for every time she
Gold.
discovered a natural
Yeah,
wonder.
it used to be 300 in all ages when she does it. Now it's only
Yeah.
100 gold per
And
age, which,
but what
yeah.
they did is they made it so that the yields provided by natural wonders scale up as you discover more natural wonders. So it's less immediate bonus and more long-term bonuses.
Yeah, she's still strong, but she's not ludicrous piles of gold strong.
Yeah, major nerf, but it was warranted too. It looks. So yeah, reactions to disabling legacy paths. I mean, I see a YouTube video and a Reddit thread here. You can start with either. Whoa, what's this? My bad.
Did you
Highly
click the wrong
professional
thing?
we are here. Okay, I guess we'll start with the Reddit thread, which is a little more critical by Lord Commander Internet. Yeah, saying that it is still not full sandbox, and I think that's technically true. And I don't think we're going to get full sandbox in Civ 7 just as a forward. Like that, the design is more constrained for better or worse, and whether it ultimately becomes better or worse, I think depends on how well the game continues to get developed and improved on. But yeah, certainly one of the things this post is complaining about is that it's still not practical to get the kind of science advantages over other civs that you could in previous titles. And that's true. Whether that's good or bad is your mileage may vary, but it's certainly true. Like you can't have tank versus spear as easily in Civ 7 as you could in earlier civs.
But I mean, honestly though, how often has that been happening since like Civ 3? Like has that even still been a thing for the last
It
few
depends
iterations of
how
the
good
game?
you are and what difficulty you play on.
I
Because
mean,
like people who can win turn 100 science victories or on Civ 6 would have no trouble picking like any mid-range difficulty and like just slamming tanks into like classical era stuff of the AIs. Like that you could absolutely do that in Civ 6. And like the best of the best in Civ 4 were getting liberalism by like 200 AD on average. Sometimes they could manage it in BC. Sometimes on hard maps it'd be a little slower. But that's on deity, which like tech costs being increased. You put that same player on a low difficulty, and yeah, once again, they'd be smashing lower tech stuff like nothing. And in fact, even on deity, they were getting tanks against Renaissance era units and sometimes medieval in extreme cases. So yeah, I mean that's been a thing in Civ pretty much until now. But you do have to be pretty strong in these games to pull it off if you're playing on higher settings.
And part of the thing here is even if you go really hard in tech, you're still constrained by the age you're in. Like it does not let you start passing over into the new age's technology until you've done some other things. Whereas while things like in Civ 6 are categorized into ages, you can just keep pushing. You can beeline all the way down to those tanks if you want to. But in Civ 7, nope, you can only go up to you hit a ceiling where you can't go any further.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Like you're still playing in the constraints of the era, for better or worse. And for people who did like to have their lead snowball, it will feel worse. I don't know if that counts. Like that's a different criticism. Like this is almost like a complaint about the science system couched as not being sandbox, as opposed to just like complaining about the sandbox versus not generally. Because I mean, to some extent, like Civ has victory conditions and things you are punished for not doing and things that you are rewarded for doing generally. Uh, so to some degree, none of the Civ games have been a sandbox in
well,
the
and they've
strict sense of the term.
yeah, and they've always had the discrete victory conditions where you win a science victory or a culture victory, or a military victory. Like it's not, other
Yeah.
than like again, I often refer back to Civ 4, which had I always forget there was a domination and a conquest, and I forget which one was which. One is like capturing everybody's capitals or whatever, and the other is just like controlling a majority of the map and population. And that was always my favorite victory because you could accomplish it however you wanted.
The second one is domination. The former one is difficult to achieve normally in Civ 4 because it is not capturing capitals. It is full wiping every other civ on the map or making them all your subject. But if you make everyone your subject, half their land and pop counts towards yours, so you'd often get domination first anyway.
Yeah, you'd trip
So
over
to
the
get
other victory
conquest,
condition.
you have to either be like tiny but vassal everyone, or you just literally wipe everyone out.
Yeah, it's kind of like how in Civ 6, if you were going for a military victory, sometimes you would accidentally trip over the culture victory because you would wipe out all of the civilizations who had better culture and tourism than you and leave only the weak ones who are quickly overwhelmed by your tourism, and then suddenly you've won a culture victory.
It depends how much tourism you invest in, because if you don't invest in tourism and you just make military units and take cities, you'll probably get domination first.
Yeah.
Or yeah, in Civ 6.
Yeah, because it just,
But
it
yeah,
just
if you
takes
invest in
one other.
tourism and you like smack people down, then yeah, you'll get culture
Yeah.
instead.
Because inevitably, even when I go for a domination thing in Civ 6, there's always one other Civ that is super strong in culture, and I'm not going to beat them even if I own the other 2/3 of the planet.
Yeah, unless you
Right.
wipe them out entirely first.
Well, yes,
And then,
also that. But, before that point, if I decided, oh, I'm tired of fighting, I just want to finish this out as a different victory. Cultural, it's not happening. Space is probably happening, but not cultural.
Yeah. Man, space is I mean, like that doesn't feel that much faster. I guess in like real life terms, in terms of clicks, it is though. Just because the modern games are so bad with that.
Yeah, well, if you have enough good, you've captured enough capitals that have super high production and stuff, it doesn't take long to turn them back around and to just grind your way through base.
Yeah, I mean, if you could issue orders to units more efficiently, that wouldn't take long either. But it does. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I do have to say that I think I might be a little bit out of touch with the rest of the community in terms of like the legacy paths, and I have to say that I have really mixed feelings about this update allowing you to disable the legacy paths. So again, as I said before, I love almost all the other granular settings and difficulty tweaks that they added in this patch. But the legacy pass is the one thing that I'm a bit iffy about, because it's like people seem to act as if they are like the discrete victory conditions of previous games. Like you're in the Antiquity Age and like you hit the Silk Roads or whatever, and like the Antiquity just ends, and that's not actually how it works. Like accomplishing the goals of the legacies progresses the age, but like it's difficult to like explain. But like the big problem for me isn't so much that the legacy paths are there, it's the fact that the age just ends at some point and then skips ahead to the next age, and you don't get to play the time in between. And there's very little warning, right? For me, it's the suddenness and the abruptness of the age transitions. It's not the fact that you're earning points towards these various legacies, because like basically all it does is it potentially speeds up the progress through the age, and it gives you bonuses for the next ages. But like, it's not like you have to win a legacy, right, in order to like be allowed to go into the next age. Like,
No, you can completely fail.
Right, you just don't get any of the bonuses or that any of them give you going into the next age. So like I'm a little bit confused by I like that Firaxis is giving us all of these options to custom tailor the game to how we want, but at the same time, like the age transitions and the legacy stuff is kind of part of the fundamental identity of the game, and I feel like if you start letting players just turn that stuff off, then the game loses its identity. And I guess maybe that's what some of the people want, right? They want the game to just be, Civ 5 and Civ 6 again for the second or third time.
Yeah, but this doesn't do it either.
Right.
I would say 5 and 6 are way different from each other.
Right, because at the end of the day, right, regardless of whether the legacy paths are on or off, the age still ends, and that reset happens. right? Like, it's not like they disabled age transitions, which, and again, that's not even something that I specifically want. What I just want is for there to be a more gradual transition instead of just that hard cutoff. You know, I like things that I've proposed is, you know, how about have the crisis happen after the age is over, right? And the crisis is the thing that happens between ages during the transition. You know, so you get to play that in between time, you know, and you can have parts where you unlock next age's resources and maybe start unlocking next age's like units and stuff like that, and you can start, you know, colonizing or settling in order to claim those resources and upgrading units and stuff like that. And then the next age happens and you choose a new civilization, or maybe you even choose to be the same civilization, like what I was saying earlier, like humankind does. And then you get to keep playing, and it's more seamless. Because right now the way it happens is, especially if you like, I'm playing on the extended age lengths whenever I play, and like I'm still like ending the antiquity age in like 1800 BC or something like that. And like it just feels super short. And then the exploration age starts like 1,000 years later. You know, or maybe
Yeah,
even 2,000
where
years later. I forget what year it starts, but
yeah, where'd the 1,000 years go to?
right, like that's not playable. But then it's also stuff like what if there are more wonders I wanted to try building, or I was in the middle of a war trying to conquer another player, and you know some other player halfway across the world meets another legacy objective and suddenly the age ends. Like that's the stuff that is annoying. It's not that the legacy paths are there or that I have to pick new civs. Like those things are fine to me. It's just I hate that there's huge gaps in the history of the game that are just completely unplayable depending on how rapidly you progress through the ages. That's the thing that bothers me. And I don't know, maybe that's the same thing that's bothering other people and they just don't know how to explain it or articulate it, so they just say, oh, I hate the legacy and I hate the ages. Or maybe I'm different from all the other people who are complaining about the legacies and the ages, and I have a very specific like niche complaint that I want addressed. But like, you know, I like humankind, right? I like being able to switch civilizations. Like I would have been surprised if something like that wasn't in Civ 7. I just don't like the way that it's implemented.
I think the more logical choice from a Civ series perspective would have been leader. Like I think
Yeah.
that would have bothered people less.
Yeah, and I've said that before too. Like that was the thing that really surprised me was I thought you'd be changing leaders over the course of the game, and then that would reflect, you know, different dynasties and whatever, you know, coming into power over the course of time. But the civilization would still, you know, stay the same. Especially,
I
you know,
mean,
with
they
humankind already
probably
on the market.
they probably could have made the mechanics almost identical to what they've done now.
Yeah,
And did leader switching instead of Civ switching.
yeah, you would just pick a new leader instead of, you know, picking a new civ.
Yeah.
And everything else would be pretty much the same. But yeah, I don't have a problem with ages and civ switching and legacy paths. My problem is just with that abrupt, sudden cutoff at the end of an age, where the game makes you stop and you don't even have an option to do one more turn if there were things you needed to do. Although, I mean, that could completely break the balance of the game too, which is probably why they don't allow that. But
But also now you have that option. If you turn it off, you have that option now on the modern age that you get the one more turn for as long as you want to, because there's no score victory, so you just keep going. It's like,
right.
so why can't I have this in other ages?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if because like you could have been planning for the age to just end, and then if it doesn't, because some other person, right? Because you got to think about multiplayer, really. Like that would that break multiplayer, right? Because if I'm expecting the age to end, right, when it's supposed to end, and I'm planning around that, right, and some other player decides they want to hit one more turn, like that could put me in a really bad situation, right? Like if I'm like conquering another player, oh yeah, sure, you'd have to probably in multiplayer.
Because you disable other things that you can do in single player and in multiplayer anyway. Like you can't save reload in multiplayer unless you can convince everyone else to do it.
Yeah, have fun with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing like casually with like one or two other people and it's mostly co-op, then yeah, sometimes you can convince people to save reload, although it's inconvenient as hell. But you can do it. But like generally speaking, that's not an option. And there's a few other things like that too, like with some of the things that interact with AI versus players. Players can just be like, yeah, no, and there wouldn't be any counterplay for that. A good example of that are like the Diplo based stuff, because if you know how the AI's logic works, you're practically compelling it to vote certain ways or do certain things that are not necessarily in its interests in a single player environment. But in a multiplayer environment, good luck getting another player to vote against their interest. That takes considerably more skill, and that skill is not within the game mechanics. It is completely within your ability to manipulate other players at that point. So like it's not the same. It's basically disabled already between game modes. So you just like disable one more turn before the end of the game in NMP. Wouldn't be
Yeah.
hard.
Right. And then, on the other hand, we've got people who are talking about how like disabling the legacies is like gonna save the game and rejuvenate it. And I'm like, I don't know that it makes all that much of a difference, really. Other than just
Yeah,
how
I
fast you
agree.
progress through the ages.
Yeah, because someone said something similar to what you were saying is about, yeah, okay, this slow the age down, so it takes longer if I turn off the pass, but there's still that abrupt bonk. Now it's a new age.
Right. And stuff resets. And I don't get to
Yeah.
finish the things that I was in the middle of. Like, and it's, there's so many things like where it's like, oh, if I could just have like a 10 or 15 turn countdown, like that would solve so many problems, right? Like, you get to the point where the age, and I've talked about this before on this show, but like you get to the point where the age is like 90% complete, and it's like, should I dump a bunch of influence into befriending a city state or an independent power at this point? Because like that's going to take 15 turns or whatever to finish, and then they turn into a city state. And if I don't finish that before the age ends, that independent power disappears, and all of those points are like gone. Or similarly, if I want to annex them into my empire, like there's a buffer of time where that doesn't happen immediately. You've got to wait like 10 or 12 or 15 turns or something like that, right? Or should I start building this wonder, right? That's going to take 20 turns, right? If I don't know if the age is going to end in 10 turns or in 30 turns. Or should I start this war, right? I spent the entire age building up my military and techs and stuff like that to invade this other player, but now suddenly we get to 90% age progress, and it's like, well, is it even worth doing anymore? Because by the time I get their first city, the age might be over, right? Especially, and definitely I might not get to their
Yeah.
capital in time. Like, those are the things that just drive me nuts.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good kind of incomplete information to have that. That's true.
No, I don't think it is at all. Which is why I'm like, well, like I feel like an easy fix would be to start the crisis when the age gets to 100%, and then have like countdowns for how long the stages of the crisis last. So you know more, you have a better idea of how long you have before that absolute cutoff happens.
It kind
Yeah,
of makes
I agree.
sense in role playing sort of a thing, because if you were going through a crisis, you're not writing down all your historical events. Oh, it's suddenly this many years later. Well, okay, that kind of makes a little more sense than well, we were going along doing really great, and then boom, suddenly there were musketmen.
Yeah, right.
And then the Fire Nation invaded.
So those are my
Oh wait,
ideas.
I'm the Fire Nation.
Better
Fraxis, if you're
transition
listening,
between ages, that'd be great.
yeah, just make the transitions less abrupt, and I think you will alleviate. I very strongly feel that will alleviate most players' problems. Not all players, right? Because like I said, there's still the players who just hate having to change civs, right? And that's
Yeah,
not going to
so there are
fix it,
quite a few in the comments going, "Have you done that yet? No. Okay, still not buying."
right? Yeah, but if you just make the age transitions a little bit easier or a little bit smoother, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought. Yeah, we also had that the video. What was it? Was it Jumbo Pixel?
Yeah, it was jumbled
Mhm.
pixel, but it's mostly covering the changes in the patch.
Yeah, so I don't know that we have to. Was there anything in that that anybody particularly wanted to talk about or call out?
I don't think so. I mean, it's a fine video that gives a summary of the updates.
Yeah, so if
Uh,
you want a summary of the
but the
updates, there was a video from Jumbo Pixel. Um, what was the name of the video?
Civ
Civ
7
7
June
June.
update, yeah, massive features, customization, and pirates. A lot of it'll be things we've also covered here, but you get some visuals along with it and some different commentary on takes on the different mechanics.
One of the things that I did see in that video that like got me really excited, and then I was disappointed later, was that at the very beginning he shows map pins or map tacks, like where you can put like the district
The
labels and
mod.
wonder labels and stuff like that on the board to like plan out where you're going to build everything. And I'm like, oh, cool! Did they finally add that back in? And then it's like, oh no, that's a mod.
Yeah, for X's, there's something for me and a lot of other people. Could you put that back in? Because yeah, I use those so much playing Civ 6.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that can't be that hard to implement, right?
I mean, we've had them since what, like Civ 4, I think?
At
Which is fun
least,
because you
yeah.
can leave notes for the other players on the map.
Civ 4 was even more fun because Civ 4 let you like freehand draw on the map, which was really fun.
And you could write trolling stuff that other people have to look at.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. And sometimes accidentally reveal your battle plans if you forgot to set your little drawings to be private.
Whoops.
That's true.
Hey,
Although
what's this big arrow that says invade this city that points at my capital, Phil?
I would never make such a mistake as to reveal my plans that way.
By the
And I
time
would
you
have
noticed
you
it, you've
know,
already
and Mackie
invaded.
was with me. We planned while we were on a call with the other team. We planned out like a massive simultaneous naval invasion that burned almost every coastal city they had. And we're like casually chatting with them like that while like in game chatting, planning out where we're going.
It was great.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Living
All
up to
the
Viking, being literal Vikings.
they're spamming so many wonders with Lord Farkin and like talking some crap, and then like across one turn they're like, oh, by the way, we lost.
Oops, was that our invasion fleet simultaneously coordinated to attack for all your capitals to burn all those wonders down? Oh, our bad.
Yeah, we must have raised at least 15 cities.
It was pretty funny when we turned up and they're like, huh, that's some of their boats. What's going on? And then suddenly, burn.
Yeah, we were
Or
very
like,
careful about our positioning in the fog of war so that you couldn't see the warships. They only saw us with like the exploration vessels and whatnot.
yes, give us more tools for trolling the other players in a team.
Yeah, don't expect such rookie mistakes from me as telling you where I will attack.
Always scout the fog of war if Phil's around.
Well, of course, it
No,
wasn't your
no.
fault, Phil. It was the UI's fault.
I have beef with the UI, but like my mistakes are my mistakes. If I tell the other person where I'm attacking, that's not the fault of the UII.
Oh, okay. I'm glad that that is a place where you draw the line.
I draw the line in a lot of ways. I like my main gripes with the UI aren't that they make me play poorly; it's that they make it inconvenient to play.
Yeah.
Like it takes 2 to 4 times the inputs to get something done than it should. Like that doesn't make me make worse choices. It just annoys me and wastes my time. There are some exceptions, but most of those don't belong in Civ. They instead belong in Paradox games. And I will specifically call it Hearts of Iron 4 because that crosses the line from the UI just being poor to like being objectively horrible. There are times where it lies to you outright, and if you take what the UI says on faith, you can lose the game as a consequence. That's not okay in my mind. Like when you click a focus that says negotiate with this nation and then it automatically declares war and puts you at war with the entire hostile faction. Like I did not pick to
Excuse me, I
declare
did not
war.
say
This
declare
focus
war.
did not say I would declare war. It was that it would say we're going to negotiate for territory. Negotiate does not mean you are forced to declare war. Like, that's
Well,
bullcrap.
yeah, you're
That
negotiating
didn't even
with.
happen to me. That happened to someone on
Yeah.
Reddit who was complaining about it. But I'm absolutely on board with that being the fault of the devs, not the player.
No, you're negotiating with your guns. It's 100% intended functionality. It's a feature,
Yeah, of
not a
course.
bug. Come on, Phil.
Oh gosh.
Let the
Yeah,
guns
yeah.
do the talking.
Or the island of Curacao. According to Paradox, that's not in the Caribbean. And if you take that for an achievement that requires you to own an island in the Caribbean, it doesn't count because that Curacao is actually part of South America. So you didn't earn the achievement, Derp. Yeah, come on. But we're not in Civ discussion here because, to my knowledge, Civ is better about at least not straight up lying to you. Like, sometimes it doesn't give you all the information you need, or it makes it inconvenient to access the information. I can think of a few examples where the UI lies. One of them is in Civ 4, where they're averaging a Diplo opinion but not communicating that to you anywhere.
Well,
So the game like just kind of just has an exception to a rule that it doesn't tell you.
one thing in Civ 7 that is kind of similar to what you were just talking about, and I think they have at least partially fixed this, is when you would do an alliance with another Civ in Civ 7, the game would not bother to tell you that that other Civ is at war already. So what would frequently happen to me in my early, weeks of playing the game is someone would offer me an alliance. I would say yes, and then it would immediately pop up with the new prompt asking me to declare war on the person that they're at war with. And if you say no, it breaks the alliance and gives you a pretty large negative diplomatic modifier with that civ. So I would make
Okay, yeah, that's
alliances.
crappy.
Yes, I would make the alliances and then not want to do the ensuing war, and then end up with worse relations with that civ than I had before they offered me the alliance. So eventually I learned my lesson, and they do allow you to back out of all those diplomacy screens without committing to anything. So I did get into the habit of whenever another civ offered me an alliance, I would back out, and I would go and I would check if they were at war with anyone, and then I would go back in and accept or reject the alliance accordingly. I think they have since updated it so that there is like a warning that they are at war, and that accepting the alliance will cause you to declare war on the other civilization. But like, I don't think that pops up all the time, so there's still issues there. Another frustration that I had was in the case where you have like a triangle of alliances. So I'm allied with Civ A and with Civ, or sorry, let's see if I can.
Yeah, it's the A and B and the A and B fight. Yeah.
Right, like, and what Civ 7 seems to be doing, and this frustrates me, and it could be that it's random and maybe I'm just getting unlucky, or it could be that this is the rule they're going with, and I think it's a bad rule. Is the ally if there's a civ is an ally of two other civs who go to war with each other, that third party ally will fight alongside the attacker and not the defender.
That is a very bad implementation.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you are allied with another civ and they are allied with a third civ that declares war on you, your ally will be forced to fight alongside the aggressor who just attacked you out of nowhere. So
Can't they turn that down? Like refuse CTA?
I think they could. Yeah, they could refuse. Well, actually, I don't know, because I think once you're in the alliance, I don't know how it works under the hood. So as the player, what would happen is if another civ goes to war with someone, you're given a dialogue prompt of whether you want to join the war or not, but it's always on the side of the attacker, not on the defender. So if you say no, it breaks the alliance with the attacker. You might still have the alliance with the defender, but it doesn't prompt you to join the war. And I'm like, it should either do both. Like, what it should do is it should either come up with a UI where you have the option to pick one or the other, or it should default to allying with the defender, in my opinion.
This is even worse than my initial impression when you're describing this to me. I don't think you can legitimately make a case that this is anything other than bugged. Like, I don't think the devs could credibly defend the implementation as described here. Yeah. Yeah, because like, do you have a is there a penalty for civs reneging on alliances with people other than the person you interact with? Like, if you ally with somebody, then backstab them, do the other civs care? Yeah. Like, when an ally attacks you, they are betraying you straight up. Like, that should count as such diplomatically. Like, an alliance does not mean attack me. It kind of means the opposite of that. Because apparently it's bugged. If it's really working like you described, it's bugged. I'm sorry, but like even if the devs say otherwise, they're wrong. That's not what words mean. Yeah, hopefully it gets patched. That hasn't shown up in a patch note because we've gone through the patch notes. I don't remember reading about that. It should never be the case. Like what you're describing just shouldn't happen. It, like I don't care if it's random or not. Like if it happens, it's bugged. Well, they got to break the alliance first. Break the alliance then. But if they're allied to you, that shouldn't be a thing. Okay, well, that's also an questionable implementation that you are able to do that without penalty, without serious penalty, where you just straight up attack an ally. Yeah, I mean, I think cold arms should be something you choose to do regardless. Yeah, the way Civ 4 handled it, which I thought was pretty reasonable, was if you're in an alliance and one of the two people gets attacked, it auto declares like everyone who's allied to the target would also just be at war. But if you wanted to bring someone in on a war you're attacking someone else, you would have to negotiate for that diplomatically. Like alliances were defensive, or in advance or after you declare, you could like bribe other civs to attack the target unless they liked the target enough. Yeah. And then the only thing that would go beyond that is permanent alliances, where your war and peace statuses were just 100% shared, no matter what, and you like won or lost as a team, etc. Like it was basically team play that it was decided mid game. So that was completely a different system.
Right.
But for alliances, they were defensive.
Well, then there was also, I think, like the vassals, I think, like had to go to war with you similarly, but
Yeah, they shared your Diplo status as well, but
yeah.
that was not a consensual relationship generally. It could be, I guess. You had peace vassals in the game too, but
And yeah, I did not
mostly it
intend.
was
I did.
capitulation.
I did not intend for that to become a totally unplanned additional topic, but there you go. You got a bonus topic, everyone.
That's how it goes with this.
Yeah.
More fun than to always stick to a strict script.
But anyway, this is supposed to be ostensibly a strategy podcast, so it would be kind of nice to start talking about strategies in Civilization 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about some of the differences and strategies between cities and towns, and we're going to be referencing a video from One More Turn, which was actually posted like 5 months ago when the game came out, and it's been on our backlog of things to cover for multiple episodes now, but we just hadn't gotten around to it, and I really want to make sure that we do get around to it, especially since some of the stuff has now kind of become moot because they've updated the ways that towns work, but I think still fundamentally it applies. But yeah, so if you are unclear on how towns work, this video from One More Turn called Cities vs. Towns in Civilization 7 Over-Explained is a good little primer. It's not terribly long. I think it's only like 15, 16 minutes.
Yeah. All 16 and change.
Yeah, and it goes over kind of, what the differences are between how a town works and how a city works, what some of the different town specializations do. Of course, in the intervening time, Firaxis has patched and changed what the town specializations do, and they've actually added a few more town specializations. So that information is now a little bit out of date, but like the general gist of it is still good. So basically, if you're listening and you're still unclear about how towns and cities work, when you create a settler in Civ 7 and you settle a new settlement, so it's a little bit confusing because there's basically 3 different words that they use to describe very similar things. So there are cities, which are like your full-fledged cities that have a production queue and can, train military units and do all that stuff. Then there are towns, which are smaller than cities and are limited in the things that they can build, and they do not have a production queue. They have to build everything by spending gold. So kind of similar to having like a client state in like Civ 5, for instance. And then there's another term, which is settlements, which is a blanket term that covers both cities and towns. So all cities and all towns are settlements, but a settlement has to be either a city or a town, and towns are not cities and cities are not towns. So that if that was confusing to you, hopefully that clears things up a little bit. But yeah, the big difference between the two is that towns don't have their own build queues, and they can only build like warehouse and fortification buildings. They cannot build culture buildings, they cannot build science buildings, they cannot build military buildings. They cannot build wonders because they don't have a production queue, and you can't just buy a wonder. So if you have they can, however, build rural districts. So if you're playing with a civilization that has a unique rural improvement, you can build those in towns. You have to buy it with gold, and it has to replace an existing rural improvement. But if you have a civilization that has a unique building and quarter, then you cannot build those in towns unless you have, unless there's like a civilization ability or something that like lets you, like I think like Augustus, the leader, or the Roman civilization, I think has an ability that lets you build certain buildings and districts in towns that you would not otherwise be able to build.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, and then basically the way that the towns work is portion, I think it's like 50% or something of their food and production goes to connected cities. So that is cities that are connected to the town directly via a road. So at the beginning of the game, it'll be your capital. And roads are automatically built now when you build new settlements, at least roads to your nearest city or to the capital. If you want to build additional roads, then you have to train a merchant unit and have them build roads. And then you can choose to specialize towns. And that happens when you hit population 7 in a town. You're given the option to specialize. And when that happens, the town stops growing completely, which is something that I'm kind of like iffy about. I kind of wish that it would just slow the town growth instead of stop it completely, but it stops it completely. And then instead you get different bonuses depending on what specialization you go with. So there's like the fishing town specialization, which just takes all of your food and it ships it to the nearest connected town. There's the mining town specialization, which takes all your production and ships it to the nearest town. And then there's like the fortress town, which improves the rate at which units heal when they're in the city's radius or on a district.
Ship the nearest city, right? Not town. You said, because you were saying they were shipping it to the nearest town.
Oh, did I say town? I meant city. They send the yields to the nearest
sure.
city. Yes. See, even knowing this stuff, you still make the mistakes when you're talking about it. Yeah, the specialized yields go to the nearest city that is connected via a road. And I'm actually unclear on whether it's split up between multiple cities. I don't know exactly how that works. I don't know if it all goes to one city or if it gets split up if it's connected to multiple cities. I don't know. That's something I might have to look at the wiki for. And it's one of those things where there's just a lot of mechanics in Civ 7 that are not very well explained, and that is one of them. Although there is a specialization called an urban town, which does let you build some districts and buildings in the town. And I think that was one of the things that was recently updated, is that they made it so that you can build, I want to say it's culture and science buildings. So you can build like a library and a amphitheater in a urban town now. And then there's different town specializations for each age of the game. Like in the exploration age, there is like a religious town that also recently changed. I think now what it does is it adds happiness to temples and gives extra relic slots in temples that are in that town. And then in like the modern age, there's like the factory towns, which also changed. And I forget what it changed to. Crap, where's the patch notes? It used to be like you could buy factories, but now I think it has something to do with resources, like you can allocate more resources or something like that.
Yeah, you got another resource slot.
Yeah. And then when a town gets up to... I don't think it's actually bound by population. I think at any time you can choose to upgrade a town to a city, but it costs gold to do so. And the gold cost will decrease as the town increases in population. So that is an important thing to consider when you're deciding whether or not to specialize, because if you do want to eventually convert that town into a city, and you specialize it, then it stops growing. So the cost isn't going to go down any further. So if you need the cost to go down, you should not specialize, because otherwise it'll stop growing. And then once it becomes a city, you can do all the stuff that regular cities do. You get a build queue, you can build wonders, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and you can only have so many cities.
Well, you have a settlement limit, not a city limit. So it's
like each city you make reduces the number of settlements because towns are less costly on that cap.
Right. Wait, what? Are they? I thought... What do you mean?
Aren't they? Don't cities cost more to... Don't they count more against the cap than towns?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just a settlement cap. Like you can have, like 5 settlements, and that can be 2 cities and 3 towns, or 3 cities and 2 towns, or 1 city and 4 towns.
Okay, I was under the impression that it was different than that.
Yeah, when the game first came out, I thought that as well, but no, that does not seem to be the case. And yes, there is a limit, and exceeding that limit, applies like debuffs to yields and stuff like that. I forget what the exact penalties are. It's not like huge. It's not super crippling. So you can go over that limit by like one or two cities, especially if you're getting close to the point where, or one or two settlements, especially if you're getting close to the point where you unlock a new settlement. And the way that you increase that cap is largely through the tech and civic trees, including your civilization's unique civics. Like every civilization in the game, I think, has at least one of their unique civics will increase your settlement limit, and I think some civilizations get more. Like I think like Rome might have more settlement, a higher settlement cap than other civilizations.
How are we supposed to settle our bloodlust if we can't just conquer everything right away?
Yeah, well you can, but it's going to count against that settlement cap.
Yeah. I mean, you can also make settlements stop existing.
That's true. Yes, you well, but there is an important caveat with that, which is that towns and cities are not instantly raised, as they were in some past games. Instead, what happens is the districts or buildings in the town or city are raised like one at a time. So it will take multiple game turns to successfully raise the town or city, and during the time that it is being raised, there are also debuffs that are applied to you. Like I think it reduces your influence generation during that time period, and I think there's also a happiness penalty while that's happening. And I think it also adds creates a negative diplomatic modifier with the civilization whose town or city you're raising.
Well, I mean, it probably should.
I think. I'm not 100% sure on that last one, but I think it hurts your relationship.
I mean, if it doesn't, then it should, because raising someone's stuff is a pretty committal move of hostility against them. Like, it's hard to be more hostile.
Yeah, for sure. And then also choosing to keep the settlement, there is, of course, the period of unrest. You have to wait so many turns before you can, build anything in that town or city. And there's a chance of, rebellions or whatever happening if you don't maintain the happiness. So similar stuff to previous games.
Yeah, although, man, loyalty in Civ 6 was way more punishing than any of the other conquest mechanics in any other Civ games. Because, like, you could have very unproductive cities in Civ 4, but they would not culture flip if they were conquered. They could not culture flip to the nation from which it was conquered. So they could be functionally useless, but they would never go back. So you would still be able to keep progressing against the enemy, regardless of culture pressure, as long as your military was good enough. And in Civ 5, I mean, you didn't have to worry about the city flipping back. You just had to worry about your happiness. And don't get me wrong, that was nothing. That was not nothing. But certainly it wasn't like Civ 6 where loyalty pressure can just flip cities back and generate units from nothing if you don't conquer fast enough or have some way of mitigating it.
Yeah, well, there was Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say for Civ 6, it's like if you don't go straight for the capital to knock out that big cultural influence or loyalty stuff, now you're not keeping those cities very long.
Well, it's either that or you would have to conquer or build your own cities in the compact little triangle or whatever,
so that even sometimes you do. But even when you do that, sometimes you have to reconquer that city 2 or 3 times before it settles down.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Yeah, if you take a triangle and one of those 3 is the capital, then you're usually okay. But that's easier to say than do.
Yeah, it was a common strategy to get multiple cities down to 0 HP before actually moving a unit in and taking all of them on the same turn, so that they reinforce each other's loyalty.
Yeah, or at least within 3 turns of each other.
Right, yeah. But you don't have to do that anymore in Civ 7.
It could not flip faster than that. But yeah, Civ 7 is... it's not that brutal. And to be fair, none of the other Civ games were either. That was a Civ 6 special.
Right. And some people liked it. Some people really hated it.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay, I think.
I think the big thing is you hate it until you figure out how to mitigate it. Like I said, if you know to get the cities down to 0 HP and then capture multiple cities on the same turn or on like within really close proximity to each other, that makes a huge difference probably in people's perception of that particular rule.
Yeah, and plus, like, it made wars go faster the faster the game went on. Because, like, in the early to mid game of Civ 6, like, you're gonna sit and move that quickly, and it was hard to bring cities down. It was hard to concentrate fire in cities because you don't have that much range. So it was reasonably difficult to like take cities within 3 turns of each other without like attacking multiple cities simultaneously with different units. But by like modern era, you could have like artillery with 3 range and then have some of them promoted to 4 range,
And
and
bombers
all of them
and
have like 4 movement speed. Your infantry have 5 movement speed. So like you take a city and it's going to revolt in 3 turns. You throw like a governor in that to make that 4 turn revolt, and then like on the following turn, your artillery is already firing at the next city and bringing it down. And you're like, if you don't take it on that second turn, you'll take it on the third turn, and that'll make the city you just conquered previously take longer to revolt, and you just keep going because you're moving so quickly and doing so much damage to cities so quickly that you don't have to worry about it anymore. Like even the fastest revolt times, you can conquer, you can out conquer that speed wise. And that's not even getting into like planes and stuff. You can just do that with artillery.
right. And then you could also like if I remember correctly, do things like purchase a monument or something in the city you just captured, which I think gives you another buffer turn.
Yeah, it depends because there's breakpoints. Because you only lose so much loyalty per turn, and then it hits 0.
Yeah. And then there were policies
So
that could also, add extra loyalty for having garrisoned units and stuff like that, which could give you
oh
even
yeah, and
more
you'd be
buffer.
running those by then. And you'd also like run you put governors like and like rotate them forward. Usually Victor would be further back and established so that you'd get both the proximity benefit from him and his like special proximity benefit. And then in like a newly conquered city, you'd put someone else.
One of the big things that changed it regarding conquering cities in Civ 7 is that unlike in Civ 6, in Civ 7 you can build walls and fortifications around multiple districts, not just the city center. And you have to fight and capture all of those walled districts in order to take the city.
Hmm.
Because I don't think, again, I could be wrong, but I don't think that simply capturing the city center is sufficient for capturing the entire city if other districts in that city are fortified.
How does that work on the from the perspective of the person being conquered then? Like if their city center gets taken, to what extent can they still manage the city?
I don't know. Maybe taking the city center does take the whole city. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's that in particular has ever come up because typically you build your fortifications out in the direction of hostile players. So usually you have to take the outer fortifications before you can take the inner fortifications. I don't think I've run into a situation where someone's able to just go around the back door and go straight into the city center without having to go through outside fortifications. But like I think the way
That's gotta happen at least sometimes.
the
You
way
have to
the
like
game
backstab
explains it
or
is it makes it sound like you have to take all the fortified districts. But it could be the case that maybe you only need the city center. But one of the things to consider as well, though, is that if you have military buildings in the city, new units are produced at that building instead of at the city center. So, like, I guess hypothetically speaking, even if someone has captured your city center, but you have barracks and you want to build a new unit, that new unit would spawn at the barracks tile and not at the city center tile.
where are you getting the yields from though?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
If your city center's
That's
taken, I mean,
something
I
I'll
could
have to.
picture maybe buying them there, and that worked that way in Civ 6 as well, where if you had a military district, units would appear there if possible.
Oh, we actually did get a comment on this on YouTube. Timothy Brules says the build menu becomes disabled until you recapture the center. So, Timothy, do you know
Yeah,
if you're still listening? Is capturing the city center sufficient to capture the entire city, or do you need all districts with fortifications or walls?
that's interesting though. But I mean, clearly, if you can see the build, yeah, you need all districts. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, just based on that information, it wouldn't make sense that to say that the build menu becomes disabled if the city is fully transferred ownership, because you wouldn't be able to access it.
And Timothy did confirm that, yes, you do need all districts. So that's my understanding. That's Timothy's understanding. So clearly that's the way it works. We can't both be wrong.
Some weird kind of like partial ownership thing where it's contested.
Yeah, like I said, I've never seen it come up in a game that I've played, but like that's the way that the rules had been explained to me, and I'm like, okay. So I assume that this has happened for Timothy then, if he's saying that this is the way that it works.
Or you can just check by switching who you're controlling, etc.
But yeah, so like, what would be one of the reasons for doing certain specializations? Like obviously, if you have a city or a town on the frontier with a hostile power, then going with a fort city is a good idea because that's going to speed up the healing of your units. And one other important caveat that I neglected to mention before is once you choose a specialization for a town, you cannot choose a different specialization for that same town for the rest of that age. You can switch back to having no specialization, which means the town continues to grow. So, for example, with a fort town, you could create a fort town for the duration of a war in order to get the healing bonuses for your units that are like defending or attacking from that town or that retreat back to that town to heal. And then you could go back to no specialization for that town when the war is over, and then the town will continue growing normally. But you would not then be able to switch that town to like a different specialization. So you do have to put quite a bit of thought into, what specialization you want to take and when you want to do it, because you are locked into that pretty much for the duration of the age.
You want the bonuses, you got a hard commit. I mean, if you really wanted to do something else, then you could just make it a city.
Right. I mean, the cities don't have the specializations like that, but you're just free to build whatever you want.
You might have a spot that you scouted out that you might want a city later on, but not right now, but it's got a lot of resources you want. So you put down like the mining town over there and get all those resources, have it hooked into your capital or something. Then maybe in the next stage you can turn it around into a city and then it can flourish.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what you would do. Like there's a bunch of rough terrain and mine resources. Put a settlement right in the middle of it, and then once you get up to high enough population, you've claimed all the tiles that you need to work. You convert that into a mining town. You buy a brickyard in there in order to increase the yield for all those mines and quarries. And then a bunch of that production is then going to your other cities, and then in those cities you build your wonders and stuff like that with that large production boost that you'd be getting. And that's exactly how you're supposed to be using these things. And then there's other city specializations, like there's like a trade hub, which I think extends the range of your trade units. So that's and the way I understand that one works is I think it increases the range of all of your trade units from all cities and towns. So that's kind of a weird one because you would kind of think that you would want to put that on like your borders with friendly civs that you want to send trade routes to, but my understanding of how it works is that's not actually necessary. You can put your trade hub town anywhere and it boosts the range of all your trade units everywhere.
Yeah, you just got some place where there's a lot of trading going on that's inside your borders, and the people are willing to cross your borders to come trade.
Right. And then there was another specialization, which actually was one of the few things that got debuffed in the new patch, which was the what did they call it? It was the town specialization that gives extra influence. It used to give 2 influence, now it only gives 1 influence. And influence is one of the hardest.
Oh, the hub town.
Yes, the hub town. That was it. Yeah. And influence is like the rarest and most precious resource in the game. It's one of the few times in a civilization game where there is a yield that comes even close to like production or science in terms of how important it is. So hub towns were very popular.
Hating on the money, huh?
What was that?
Hating on the gold.
Yeah. So I think I don't know if hub towns. I don't know if having them down to one influence is going to make people not build them anymore. I guess we'll see. Like, I kind of second guess that decision now, but I don't know. I guess we'll see what the meta says if it gets updated or if they add extra bonuses to that one to give it a little something extra to offset the fact that the one influence is just not a lot.
And they also added with the new stuff. They added resort towns, which is all happiness and gold. You find that place where you've got a nice natural wonder, but you don't necessarily want to build a city over there. But hey, you can go build a resort town, and then it adds more happiness and gold. Was it depending on the appeal, and plus 50% yields on the natural wonder tiles. So you might want to. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out what else you do with it.
I mean, that's I think that's pretty much it. Because Civ 7 doesn't have like the. It doesn't have like the tile appeal, or doesn't seem to have the tile appeal mechanic that Civ 6 had. So like it's basically natural wonder or bust, I think, with that particular one. I haven't found any other good uses for it. I mean, I guess if you just want a happiness city, does it require that it be a natural wonder? I don't think so.
Well, it'd be kind of silly to build it on a place where you didn't have the natural wonder tiles, though. But it also says it has to you get plus 1, 2, or 3 or happiness and gold on tiles with happiness of the natural appeal, which I think is only that's only next to natural wonders, or very few other formations.
Yeah, that's one of those things where I'm not really sure what natural appeal even means, because like, you know, I haven't seen anything in like the tooltip on tiles that say that a tile is appealing, which is the way that it worked in Civ 6. There's a link here. Let's actually click on this. What the heck even is appeal? Oh, so I guess there is an appeal mechanic in Civ 7. It's just kind of like invisible. Let's see. Here's what the wiki says. Similar to Civilization 6, except the core difference is that features such as mountains, vegetation, and water tiles do not make themselves appealing, but make adjacent tiles appealing if enough are present. Apparently, marine tiles cannot be appealing, and a tile is considered appealing if it is adjacent to at least 3 of the following scenic features: vegetation, mountains, a navigable river, a coastal tile, a lake, or a natural wonder.
So you might actually have a spot that has a nice combination of mountain and lake and river or something, which you could put a resort town there, even though it's not a natural wonder. It just would be better if you had the natural wonder.
Okay, so actually this is something that I have seen in the game. I just didn't know where it was coming from. So it provides 1 happiness per age. So the way you would see this would be if you're in your city or your town and you're going to build a new building, in the overlay that shows you what all the yields would be on all the different tiles, you will see tiles that will show happiness as a yield. And that means that that tile is appealing. I'm not sure if you can hover over the tile and see a tooltip or anything that says that the tile is appealing, but it basically just shows up as a happiness yield on the tile. And you can see that also by just toggling on the tile yields on the map filters.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
Have those on all the time.
Yeah, so that's what that is. So that would be a place where you would potentially use a resort town. So, you know, if you have like a coastal settlement with a river and some forest and some pretty mountains, you might have yourself a very good candidate for a resort town.
I can't remember the last time I played without yields on. I must have been pretty young.
Oh, this is a
As soon as
funny.
as soon as Civ Games gave me the option to do that, I've left them constantly on.
And this is a funny thing in the wiki. It says, if a building is constructed on a vegetated or navigable river tile, it may obscure the visual features, but will still count as appealing features for adjacent tiles. So, like, what you mean? Just like the graphic, the 3D model, like covers up the thing, so like the player can't see it, but it still counts.
I guess even if you built something like a pier on a tile area and sort of covered that end of the river, but for the tiles next to it, it still counts as being appealing, even though there's a pier on it now.
Oh gosh, and the wiki even has a fun little diagram that someone made of a screenshot where they've got a bunch of arrows pointing all over the place, showing what tiles are giving which other tiles appeal. So yes, if you go to the appeal article on the civilization.fandom.com wiki, you can check this out and get a better understanding of how appeal works and where all those little happiness yields on your tiles are coming from. I had no idea where that stuff was coming from until just now. Shame on me. Bad Civ podcaster, not knowing how the game works.
Well, that's well, come on, this is a real subtle thing that we have other higher level things we're worrying about, like food.
Yeah, we don't need our people to be happy. We just need the opponent's people to be less happy.
Okay, any other town specializations or anything that we specifically want to talk about?
I think did we say the religious site one? Pointed that out that it's.
Yes, we
I mean,
did.
Okay.
I guess the only we did talk about the factory town as well. Yeah, extra resource slots. So yeah, I think we covered all of them, and some of the reasons why you would want to use some. And one other little, clarification point is you can also have multiple copies of the same specialization in different towns. Like, it's not like as far as I know, it's not like something where like you have to like pick one and only that one town can have that specialization. Like, you can have multiple resort towns, you can have multiple fort towns, right? If you want your entire border, if you've got a big long border with a belligerent neighbor and you want that entire border to be fort towns, like, you can do that, and that will be plus 5 healing to units and plus 25 HP to walls in the town. And it also gives you the ability to purchase walls on additional districts besides just the city center or the town center. So quite a few bonuses for that will help with defending against a belligerent neighbor or acting as a base staging outpost for going into their territory. And to clarify, earlier, according to the wiki, all accumulated food is distributed among connected cities, plural. If a town lacks a connection to the city, it can continue to grow independently. So that's how that works, I guess. Because I had noticed that happening in the game previously, that some of my specialized towns seemed like they were still growing. So I guess if they don't have a connection to a city, they can still grow. Okay, good to know. Although in most cases, a road is automatically made. So I think that would pretty much only happen if, like, there's a natural feature like mountains or something that block it, or if you're building a settlement across water.
You've got that place on the map where it's totally surrounded by mountains, except for this few hexes you want to build on. It's cut off from everything.
Well,
all the good stuff's over there.
How'd you get your settler in there then?
Water, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. Sail around to the other side.
Yeah.
Sail
around the other side, but it doesn't count. But you don't have any like port close enough to count for the water route, so then you also can't do the land route. I mean, the Civ maps are weird enough at times. I could totally see that happening.
Especially a fractal map.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if foreign empires, borders, or independent powers or city-states maybe also blocks your road. So it might be also the case that if it's on the other, if you're creating a new settlement on the other side of another civ's borders, maybe it's not able to create a road in that case. I'm not sure about that, so please don't quote me on that. I guess I'll have to pay closer attention when the AIs do stuff like that, because the AIs still love to like forward settle and put new towns in like weird places where they're really hard to defend. But yes, between the One More Turn video and the wiki, there is a lot of information on how to do town specializations. So if you want more information, by all means, check those out. I'm actually learning a lot of things just scrolling through it right now. But I think that covers pretty much everything we had to say.
Alrighty then. This has been episode 447 of PolyCast. I'm Michael Luo. With me as usual, Mega Bears fan.
I definitely got to do more of my own homework before I come onto these podcasts.
I know. Every time we do the new topic, I'm like, wait, that works this way. I know the feeling.
In our defense, it's still a fairly new game. We're all still learning.
And they keep patching it and changing it too.
Yeah, every month it's a new game.
Well, not entirely new, but things change. And the me too.
If we're not sending them to the fields, we can at least send them to the mines.
Ah, the Civ Pops long for the mines.
Indeed.